All right. Hello, everyone. So, trying something a little bit different for the ASCILITE Learning Design Special Interest Group for our reading for May 2022. So, in case you didn't notice, the reading is from Fred Pass and Jerome van Merenboer, and it's about cognitive load theory methods to manage working memory load in the learning of complex tasks. Nice short reading, only about 4 pages long. And I propose that we use a 3-2-1 scaffold in order to structure our responses, and then we post them in the Teams chat. So 3 things that you found were interesting or learnt from the reading, 2 questions that you might have to ask, and 1 thing that you're going to change about your practice. So without further ado, I'm going to get into it. All right, so this is what I thought was interesting. The 3 things that I learned and I think were the most important. I really liked the way that the article broke things down into the different categories: the learning task, the learner themselves, and the learning environment. Because I think that's something that's often overlooked, especially the learner and the learning environment. And I know that that's a recent addition to cognitive load theory, in that the learner and the learning environment are often overlooked. And when we talk about the modifications we make to task design, we often talk simply about the task that we're asking people to learn. And I also liked. So the second thing that I liked and thought was important was that even for the learner and the learning environment, this article goes into some detail about the kinds of things that can be done to help minimize working memory and the cognitive load that's related to it. So things like collaboration, gesturing, more on that later, motivational cues amongst the learner, and then in the learning environment, attention capturing, stimuli reduction, which we know about, but closing your eyes as well, which I thought was really, really interesting, but it makes a kind of intuitive sense as well. All right, so on to the 2 in the 3-2-1, the big questions that I had. And for me, the main question around cognitive load theory is how we should go about measuring cognitive load. As far as I understand, it's mostly measured in terms of um, uh, questionnaires, and its efficacy is judged based on things like randomized control testing or trials, which I think is good. But I'd be curious to know if there's another way that we could measure cognitive load and what that might look like. And then, I guess related to that, the second question I have is how do we design for cognitive load when our learners have different, or as increasingly the case, unknown levels of expertise? And I say unknown because what happens if you're designing a online course, that is done asynchronously by people from within an organization or at all different levels? Different people have different levels of knowledge about governance or expertise. So yeah, I think there's a real challenge for taking the theory of cognitive load theory and then putting it into practice in some contexts. Not all, but some. All right, and what am I going to do? What's the one thing that I'm going to do about my practice? Well, as I mentioned, I was intrigued by the notion of some of the things that we can physically do to help assist our cognitive load. So I'm going to suggest that I might try to experiment in some of my online classes with things like gesturing, counting on your fingers. We won't be counting on our fingers, but maybe we'll do something like that. And also closing our eyes as we try to think about some of the things we're doing. And I wonder if that's related to switching off the camera. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm really looking forward to hearing your responses to this article. And we will see you in June for another fantastic webinar and a reading group. All right, bye.